Next guest, once again, Tom Luginbill from ESPN. Of course, you know him from college football. He'll also have some high school football this weekend as Bentonville West travels to Broken Arrow, Oklahoma. We'll talk about that and everything else. But it's good to talk to you again. Tom, how are you?
I'm doing good, guys. It's actually good to be talking football and maybe seeing light at the end of the tunnel, actually having it.
Yeah, no, I mean it is happening. It looks like for now anyway, and the SEC's pushing forward. And boy, Arkansas did not get any favors from the league with the two extra SEC games being added, being two of the top teams from the other division in Florida and Georgia.
Yeah, nobody is welcome the Razorbacks with open arms as it comes to this schedule. It was going to happen to somebody. I know there was a lot of upheaval amongst the coaches in the league when the schedules got released. I know that Jim Fisher wasn't overly excited as well. But it is what it is. You got to go out, you got to play the games. And I think if you followed Arkansas, particularly over the last year, I had two of their games a year ago. There's nowhere to go but up. And I think there's a big canvas here, regardless of what the schedule is. This is about building a culture and a foundation for what you want to be, once you start getting into the recruiting cellar and get some classes coming in there, 2-3 classes in a row. I don't know if it's so much of a focus on, well, can we beat those guys right now? Of course you want to win. Of course you want to compete. But I don't know if that's what the program's about right now for them.
Maybe it's just a perception, but it just feels like they've taken giant strides forward in just stability, adding Felipe Franks, adding some of the veteran transfers, and just more stability. It feels like the foundation for the program is now actually on concrete, not quicksand.
I actually agree with that. It started with what was, we believed to be a very, very surprisingly strong recruiting class. I mean, they did a really good job down the stretch in a very short period of time, gained a little bit of momentum. That rolls into your offseason. Of course, we've got COVID and all sorts of things taking place, but they did a really good job, I think, of addressing some areas of distinct concern. So, of course, the quarterback was one. So, whether it's with Felipe Franks, you have vastly upgraded that position, which was a real liability a year ago. And so, I do think that there is a direction that they're going here where, they've raised some eyebrows, and it's very clear that they hit the ground running and we're wasting no time making moves.
I want to get your thought on this because I've heard some people talk about the kind of first month or so of this season, how the teams that are new with whether it's a new offense, a new defense, in this case it's pretty much a new everything at Arkansas, versus the established programs that have not had coaching turnover or system changes in this offseason, how kind of far behind a place like Arkansas might be in the short term because everything's new and there just hasn't been a lot of time on the field to work on stuff.
It's a great question, and it's a great point to be made, particularly coaching staffs that are new, that took over other jobs. Mike Norvell's another one that comes to mind, Florida State, his staff. I don't so much believe it's about the X's and O's as much as it's about getting to know your team and your people. One of the most valuable things in an offseason, particularly when you're having a coaching change, is what takes place in your winter conditioning program and your spring program, and that dialogue and that interaction, particularly with your strength and conditioning staff, and the information that is relayed to the coaching staff in the sense of saying, all right, we've got a worker over here. We might need to move away from this guy over here. I'm not sure about this guy yet, but we might have something over here we can work with, and continually get to know the personalities of the kids. Who could be coached hard? Who needs to be handled differently? Having that interaction in and out of the building each and every day. You lose that, and you're trying to build your team and build your scheme without having that innate knowledge of who the guys are, because you had to send them all home. And I think that's a real challenge for new coaching staffs. And then when you're able to get back and you're able to work out, obviously, but you kind of start the reintroductory phase once again to try and gather as much information to know where your strengths and your weaknesses and your unknowns are so you can prepare for it.
Tom, you played the position. Felipe Franks, you mentioned that he was a massive upgrade over what you had last year. What do you see in Felipe Franks as a senior starting quarterback in the SEC?
Well, he's been through a lot. He's a guy that has had a lot of ups, and then he's had quite a few downs. I think the knock on him has never been about physical talent. It's never about can he make the throw. All of he's got all that stuff. Consistent production where there's steady improvement that's sustained. Yeah, to some degree, he's had a little bit of a yo-yo career. You're up, and then you're down, and then you're up, and then you're down. And I think having been through a lot of that, having been under a ton of scrutiny at the University of Florida, I get him. It's probably a breath of fresh air. He knows that it's a different environment. It's going to be a different team. It's going to be a different locker room. It's a different fan base in terms of how they react. And I think it's going to be something that will be healthy for him, but he is an upgrade. I mean, that's the reality of the situation. He gives them a better chance because of the experience, because of some of the scenarios that he's dealt with, to bring some maturity to that football team.
We're talking with Tom Luginbill from ESPN here on Ruskin and Zach. We talked about this, and love your opinion on it, Tom, the last few weeks about the key really to all of this, because everybody buys in during training camp, and everybody's on board then. But what's going to be crucial and what hurt Arkansas the last 2 years is, and there's no doubt with this schedule, there's going to be a losing streak at some point. It's just a matter of the way it is. Mm-hmm. How will Sam Pittman be able to keep these guys from letting go of the rope? Because honestly, Razorback fans saw some let up with the team over the last couple of years.
You know what? I think he might have already solved that issue because you saw very little departures in the offseason. You guys just fleeing. I mean, you got two true freshmen a year ago in Treylon Burks and Trey Knox. All of a sudden, those are some guys that you can depend upon now. And so I don't think it. I think this football team they're hungry to win. They're hungry for direction. They want to be led and see some results. Are they going to come immediately? No. I think that when you get hired and you've had an opportunity, I know it's brief, but you had an opportunity to at least speak to your team and let them know what we're trying to accomplish here. Kids want that. They want structure. They want a direction. They want discipline. They want to know what's going to be expected of them. And then you go out and play. You do the best you can. I'm not worried about first-year coaches in any way, shape, or form trying to hold the thing together. Now, what you can find sometimes is, and I'm sure this is going on over the last 2 years, and it goes on many football teams, is they might find out as a coaching staff and continuing to get to know their team that if they have any of that, they might have to remove some elements. They might have to make some shifts. They might have to say, listen, this isn't how we do it here. We're going in another direction for the overall health of the locker room and the chemistry of the football team. But I think those are be things that will reveal themselves that can be dealt with at that time.
Tom, we've had a discussion here the last couple of days about, I think Arkansas's offense has talent, and I think the offense will be able to put up points, but on the flip side of it, the defense is really inexperienced, really, really thin. We've had these sort of philosophical discussions about protecting the defense, which goes against everything that Kendall Briles stands for as an offense coordinator, where he wants to go fast, fast, fast.
Yeah, there's no question. And it's really, if you're going to go fast, 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 you better convert third downs and you better get first downs. That's the thing. Everybody talks about tempo. Tempo only works if you get the first down. All right? If you don't convert third downs to get that first down, then you're not very fast. And so the defense is going to be heavily reliant upon the offense staying on the field and completing drives, giving them some rest. And yeah, Kendall Briles going to want to take some shots. Is he going to want to, have a 2-play drive every now and then or a lot? Yeah, but he's also going to have to understand that it's not just about the offense, which he knows, and that they're going to have to be very protective of not only probably a lack of ideal talent, but certainly, as you stated, a lack of depth. And it's a long season with quality opponents. The offense is going to have to help out in that regard. It really is. Talk to any offensive coordinator in the country that's running any form of tempo, any form of up tempo and fast-paced stuff, they're going to tell you it's all great until you can get that first down or that second first down. And then all of a sudden you're out of rhythm, you're off schedule, and you're not fast.
And what happens is, you have a minute and a half possession, and the defense comes right back on the field.
Right back on the field.
Yeah,
Definitely right.
Absolutely. Tom Luginbill is our guest here on ESPN. As you look at this conference as a whole now, as we've had some practices in training camp, just kind of, is it Alabama? Does A&M sneak up? Just who's the favorites here to win these divisions in your estimation?
Well, for me, it would be Florida in the East. I still think it's Alabama right now in the West. I do think that Texas A&M has a football team and a roster that is really, really talented. My question is, I'm sure it is with every other college football fan or pundit or broadcaster or media member, is Texas A&M, with all the resources and talent on the field, to stop being an 8-win football team. At the end of the day, in order to be what Alabama is, in order to be what LSU and Auburn have become, in order to be what Georgia and Florida have become, you have to beat those guys. And you have to have those matchups and win those games continually, or you will continue to be an 8-win program. And that is a program that should not be an 8-win program. I think we all agree with that. And if there was a more roster for Texas A&M to push that limit and to get over that hump, it's this one. So the excuses are going to run very, very thin if this isn't a 9+ win team, all right, in this upcoming season, because I think they're capable of it talent-wise.
I heard a little hesitation when you said Alabama. Are they in maybe as much flux as they ever get into this year with all of the turnover? Tua's gone. They don't kind of know who the quarterback is. And when you talk about the West, I didn't hear you talk about LSU at all.
Well, I think that, with Alabama, they have the components that they do have returning, particularly on the line, okay? Particularly with their skill positions, even with the loss of Jerry Jeudy and Tua. We've seen them win before with Jacob Coker. We've seen them win with Blake Sims. They haven't always had to have the dynamic guy at quarterback because they've been so talented everywhere else. And I think they're going to get a lot of talented guys back on defense that they lost even prior to the start of last year. It really had a negative impact on their ability to perform. So I actually think there's going to be some Alabama's football team that will be stronger than the one that took the field and won 11 games a year ago. For me in LSU, I think anytime you have the type of magical season that they had a year ago, and you have everything that happened to them the way it happened, very, very, very difficult to duplicate that, particularly when you have distinct losses up front in the offensive line, which they do. All right, you have some shifts in the coaching staff. Obviously Joe Burrow is gone, but as you referenced, so does Tua. I just don't know if you're going to maybe have that same magic. Do I think they're a contender to win the conference? Absolutely. Do I think they're a contender for the college football playoff? I absolutely do. But I also think there's some questions that need to fall into place with some sturdy answers. And, quite frankly, Miles Brennan hasn't played anywhere near as much football as Mac Jones has. And then we don't know what the young guy out of the modern day that's going to be joining Alabama at quarterback, what he brings to the table. So I'm withholding a little bit on LSU until I see what they are up front in the offensive line and how the quarterback performs.
Tom Luginbill is our guest, ESPN, and on the call Saturday for the high school showcase game with Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, taking on Bentonville West. And I'd love to get a thought or two on that matchup from you, Tom, because I know the Bentonville West people. I've called their football game. I've called every football game they've played, and there's a lot of excitement. This is their first time being on national TV, and it's excited to get football back and to be on ESPN. It's a big deal to these kids.
Sure it is. And, it's going to be interesting because it's two contrasting styles. With Bentonville West, talking to their coaches this week, we want to go fast. We want to be up-tempo. We go 100 miles an hour. We want to get as many plays in as we can. And conversely, Broken Arrow wants to line up. They want to huddle. They want to slow everything down. They want to run the ball down your throat. So it's going to be two completely different approaches on what's going to be a very, very hot day. It's been my experience with these high school games. I've done over 100 of them over the last 15 years that your kids have to settle down. They're excited. You're probably going to see some sloppiness early, an unusual offseason, an unusual training camp. So, for both teams, they need to settle in, play their game. Don't worry about the cameras. Don't worry about all the signage and all of that stuff. To them, it just needs to be another game where you have an opportunity to showcase yourself on a national level. So it's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to. I've always enjoyed these games because, to me, the purity of the sport, all right, lies at this level. It's within this level, and this is where I have a young son that's going into ninth grade, and this is going to be his first experience. This season got postponed, but I always just love watching high school football, not so much from a recruiting perspective, but just to see the joy and the passion and the purity of it, the pageantry that goes along with it, is something that I've always appreciated.
Folks here in Northwest Arkansas know about Bentonville West. It's just their 5th year in existence, and for them to play a national showcase game is pretty impressive. But most folks around here don't know about Broken Arrow, and they've obviously got some high-end prospects we need to keep an eye on.
Yeah, you need to figure out where Marion Horn is going to be lined up. He's going to be the Where's Waldo. Where is he? Is he in the backfield? Is he returning kicks and punts? Is he playing corner? Is he playing wide receiver? Is he playing slot? He would be the most dynamic player on the field for Broken Arrow. It's going to be somebody you have to account for on every single play. So I think that's going to be something to look and something to key in terms of how Broken Arrow chooses to get him the ball. And then I think the other thing that's going to be interesting, and I was talking with Coach Pratt earlier this week. He said that the difference in philosophy on defense for Broken Arrow, they've made a complete shift to being a sit back, read and react, cover 4 zone team, to being a team where they are going to pressure, they're going to zone pressure, and they are going to blitz on just about every snap. And so that's going to have to be something that with Bentonville West and their philosophy offensive, you got to account for that. You're going to have to account for the pressure. You're going to have to expose it. I learned one thing as a player and used to teach it as a coach. If you prove that you can handle blitz, they will stop blitzing you. If you don't, then you're never going to see the end of it for the rest of the game.
Tom Luginbill with us here on Ruskin and Zach. Again, that's 2 o'clock Saturday afternoon, Broken Arrow and Bentonville West. I don't know if this is a big secret or anything, but you guys are going to be in the studio calling this, right?
Yeah, it is a new world, guys, in every way, shape, or form for broadcasting. We hope it will sound the same. We hope it will have a familiar look. But yes, we will be calling games remotely, out of the studio, off of monitors. So you lose that ambiance, lose that in-person feel. We're just doing the best we can. These are unprecedented times, requiring unprecedented circumstances and adjustments by all. As a broadcaster, you guys have been in it. We're going to have a delay that's not going to be easy because we're going to have to talk to our producer, and he's going to be ahead of what actually is happening with the action, timing that up with the play-by-play. There's inherent challenges, and you just got to go with the adjust.
When they kick this thing off, I mean, these teams haven't met before. They're not in the same conference. They come from different states. I mean, when you get these sort of interstate matchups, what's the first thing you're looking for in styles?
I'm really looking, particularly when it's early. I'm really looking to see, because when it's hot and you're in the middle of the afternoon, it will become very apparent which team is the better conditioned team. And depending on how many players you dress, some high school varsity programs dress 40, some of them dress 105. Well, if your numbers are low, so your numbers being high, you can get gassed pretty quickly. So I think I'm always looking to see which team seems to be in the best shape, because that game can get really, really long. So that'll be something that we'll be keeping an eye on early.
All right, Tom, as always, thanks so much for the time. We really appreciate it.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
All right, that's Tom Luginbill, ESPN, college football, and on the call for this high school showcase game on Saturday afternoon with the Wolverines and the Broken Arrow Tigers.